War never changes.
Fallout New Vegas is undoubtedly the most beloved game in the franchise, both among die-hard fans as well as people just casually playing a few of the games here and there. The atmosphere is unique, and its quest design alongside its writing are among some of the RPG genre's strongest offerings, and one of the aspects that add to the role-playing elements of the game the most is the conflict of the main quest, the coming second Battle of Hoover Dam, the upcoming war to decide who will rule Vegas for years to come. For the uninitiated, I will brief you the details now. If you are already well aware of the situation presented in the main quest of Fallout New Vegas, you could skip to the timestamp on screen as well as in the description below. As I'm sure the majority with even the most basic knowledge of the series are aware, on October 23, 2077, countless nuclear warheads fired by Chinese communists rained down on the face of the United States. But 12 years earlier in 2065, a famous entrepreneur and business mogul, Robert Edwin House, had predicted the events of the Great War over a decade prior, after running several projections and calculations. House had come to the conclusion that nuclear war was an inevitability, and quickly began working on protecting what he cherished most, Vegas. When the alarms sounded on October 23, 2077, House was unfortunately caught by surprise, as 77 nuclear warheads were fired at the Las Vegas area 20 hours earlier than his calculations. House managed to neutralize or destroy 59 of the warheads before impact, but could not stop the other 18, though none of them managed to hit the city of Vegas. House then goes into a hibernation, narrowly managing to avoid his own demise in the process of protecting his hometown. Not long after, scavengers soon come from all over the Mojave Desert to pick over Vegas's carcass, only to be chased away by the uncivilized and unscrupulous tribals that had found refuge in the casinos and restaurants. Buildings that once held hundreds of people, coming from all across the country or even the planet to experience the utopia of vice and sin. After 61 years, in 2131, House had awoken, but was not yet ready to interact with whatever may have been outside the steel protective doors of his Lucky 38 casino, and he bided his time. In 2274, nearly 200 years after the events of the Great War, House set out to remake New Vegas in the shape of its old world image. Using his Securitron robots as envoys, he approached 3 tribes, being the Slitherkin, the Boot Riders, and a third tribe that we don't know the name of to this day, each with the illustrious offer of becoming the new faces of Vegas. They could live in safety and in luxury, 2 things the average wastelander or tribal wasn't generally afforded. A new beginning for the tribes, with only having to exchange their tribal culture and identities in return. The Boot Riders became the chairman, the Slitherkins became the Emeritus, and the unnamed tribe now donned the title of the White Glove Society. The money inevitably started pouring in, as wastelander after wastelander came to Vegas seeking fame and fortune. But in reality, a group looking for far greater, alongside being far more dangerous than the typical tribesman or wastelander, appeared at Hoover Dam, a hydroelectric power plant splitting the Colorado River as well as Vegas' source of power. The New California Republic, or NCR, sent scouts out east into Nevada, searching for nearby territory for the Republic's never-ending expansion. And though they returned home with news of the Hoover Dam and the neon lights of Vegas, they could not do so without alerting the watchful eye of House's Securitrons, and House himself knew that his Securitrons would not be enough to fend off what was appearing to be an incoming army. And so, he recruited the 3 tribes, and the NCR, so far away from home, was forced to negotiate with Mr. House by forming a treaty. Their soldiers were allowed to set up at what was once McCarran Airport, as well as the Hoover Dam, and had to supply Vegas with power from the dam once their engineers had restored the dam to working order. The Republic could also do nothing to stop its soldiers or citizens to walk the streets of the Vegas Strip, patronizing its casinos and partaking in its decadence, only further fueling Vegas's economy and lining House's pockets. The NCR, however, would not be the only group looking to hoist their flag over the dam. 200 years after mankind had destroyed themselves in war over new resources that could be acquired, another war broke out over the resources that could be attained at the Hoover Dam in 2277. Caesar's legion, approaching from the east, crossed the Colorado River looking to claim the dam for themselves, but were quickly halted in their march westward by the NCR as their forces fell by the dozens. The legion retreated to the eastern side of the river to regain strength and gather resources for another assault. It's been 4 years since the first Battle of Hoover Dam, and as the events of Fallout New Vegas unfold in 2281, A rematch between the New California Republic and Caesar's Legion is right around the corner, and the victor seems uncertain. And even more uncertain is which of these factions is the best for the Mojave's future. Since Fallout New Vegas released in 2010, this has been an ongoing heated debate, with each member of the Fallout fanbase having their own opinion on which faction is the best for the Mojave Wasteland, each with their own reasons, whether they be in-depth analyses like this video is attempting to be, or something as absurd as the NCR having a fiat currency, skull emoji.
I don't like the Legion because I see them as based in enslaving people as epic style. I'll give you the real reason right now. Currency. The NCR dollar is a fiat currency. It isn't backed by anything and only has value because the NCR government says so. Similarly, caps only have value because merchants of the hub traded with it, but during the events of Fallout 2, bottle caps lost all value. There is only so many bottle caps in the world, so that means it can't be inflated like NCR dollars can't, but it still has no real value.
Is a fiat currency? Fiat currencies are faith-based. They are national currencies that are not backed by anything of value like gold. Instead, the government just declares that they have value, and as long as the people keep believing, they do have value, and the people accept them for a while. But here's the thing. There have been thousands upon thousands of fiat currencies throughout history, and they have all failed. 100%, no exceptions.
Though this has been quite a contentious topic within the Fallout community and possibly the greatest debate related to video game stories period, I've never really thought about it all that deeply, even as a diehard Fallout fan myself. So consider this video as not only a personal input on the debate and an opinion I'd give to others when making their decision, but also as a sort of personal retrospective on this debate, as well as just how fleshed out Fallout's world is with its believable characters and choices that actually matter in the course of the story and in the endgame. I'm also largely not going to be taking courier intervention into account, since there are too many factors to take into account when considering courier intervention, unless it's absolutely necessary with something like the house ending. And with that long intro out of the way, we can finally start.
It's a game, and games have winners and losers. I prefer the former. How about you?
Yes Man has always been a strange choice to me. While an independent Vegas in a vacuum would seem like the more desirable option compared to the NCR or the Legion, the other factors that play outside of what it offers on the surface make it a less than desirable decision. While I do have it at the bottom, it by no means implies that it is the worst, just that it is an oddity compared to the other factions we're presented with. There isn't really a whole lot to say for the independent ending of Fallout New Vegas because of how much of it is up to player choice and what specifically happens over the course of your own gameplay. However, there are things about it that are canonical. Benny tampers with one of House's Securitrons with the help of a follower of the Apocalypse, Emily Ordle, in order to overthrow Mr. House and establish New Vegas as an independent power in the Mojave Desert, currently being pulled in every which way by both Caesar's Legion and the NCR. Now calling this Securitron Yes Man, Benny programmed its personality to be submissive and compliant with whomever may give him orders. But when Benny flees or manages to get himself killed by the courier, control of Yes Man and the power that comes with that control falls into their hands. But the courier could be anyone, who would do anything and change the strip or the Mojave at large in any number of ways that they see fit. So it might not seem like we have a lot to talk about here, but there is one big problem with the Yes Man / independent ending of New Vegas, and that is Yes Man himself.
Allow me to introduce myself. I'm a PDQ-88B Securitron, but you can call me Yes Man.
Though Yes Man is programmed to listen to whomever may give him commands, he shows signs of possessing more autonomy than I'm sure the courier or Benny first realized. There are several times throughout the main quest that he will express disapproval of decisions you make, heavily express his own desires, or even express deep-seated insecurities.
Then consider them ignored. If they end up firing their howitzers at us, we'll ignore that too, until it goes away. That's one down, 4 to go. Really? That's a surprise. They'll really want to blow me up. But maybe dumb machines like me ought to get blown up and scrapped for salvage. Who knows? Not me. That's 2 down, 3 to go.
About that bunker at Fortification Hill. Quote, "Have I told you lately that you're my favorite person? You are. The reason I gave you this printout is I wanted to remind you about that bunker Mr. House built over at Fortification Hill. I was going to say something out loud, but then I felt self-conscious because I feel really annoying when I repeat myself. Just to clarify, anytime you want to repeat yourself, Go right ahead. It's only a problem when I do it. Anyway, now that you've installed me on the Lucky 38's mainframe, I can peek into Mr. House's data. And guess what? The underground facility over at the fort is super important. What Mr. House did over there was stash a huge number of Securitrons, hundreds of them. Imagine how powerful they'd be if you upgraded them with the Mark II OS. When the Legion attacks Hoover Dam, you could sick your army on them. And who deserves to have an army more than you? No one! Plus, an army of upgraded Securitrons would just be the thing to show the NCR that you mean business. Go away and stay away, NCR. The thing is, and I really hate to admit this, I can't upgrade the Securitrons over at the fort from here in the Lucky 38. I can't establish a reliable connection, and I'm sure it's all my fault somehow. But if you took the Platinum chip to the fort, you could perform the upgrade yourself. Just a suggestion. Love, yes man. End quote. Even if you go for the most perfect and objectively moral endings throughout an independent playthrough, Yes Man still decides that he needs his own reprogramming.
You did a super job wrapping things up, and I'm not just saying that because I have to. I didn't want to make a big deal about this until after we won, but, well, I found some code snippets in one of Mr. House's databanks that will let me, reprogram my personality to be a little more assertive, basically. So that's what I'm going to be doing, and it's going to take me a while, so it'll seem like I'm offline. But don't worry, everything will be okay. I've updated the Securitron's targeting parameters, so they know what to do. Vegas will be protected. So that's where I'll be, off making a few changes. And I guess I'll see you around.
There is also no killing Yes Man. Perhaps say that the courier decides Yes Man's power was too much to just be around on the strip, or even for the courier themselves to have. Yes Man still cannot be destroyed.
I feel really bad telling you this, but I kind of can't die. I mean, go ahead and destroy this Securitron. Get it out of your system. The problem is that a distributed image of my neurocomputational matrix is backed up to the network several times a day, or when I'm threatened. I can't help it. There's a little bit of me in every Securitron on the strip. So if this instance gets destroyed, I just download to a new one. If I could stop it from happening, I would. I mean, your vengeance is going to feel so incomplete.
A robot that cannot be killed, holding the power that Mr. House once held over the strip, alongside the now heavily armed Securitrons that can go toe-to-toe with Caesar's Praetorian Guard, is a deeply unsettling thought to me. And while there is nothing to empirically prove or strongly suggest that Yes Man will undoubtedly become defiant and overthrow the courier, the hints of ire and disapproval he lets slip underneath his mask of friendly obedience are enough to suggest that it could be a likely possibility. A possibility that I don't think I want to entertain even in the slightest, as the potential dangers of Yes Man are not worthwhile in comparison to the potential benefits of an independent New Vegas. An independent Vegas only frees the Mojave from the NCR's taxation and the Legion's tyranny, but it is not free from the Fiends, the Powder Gangers, the Brotherhood, the Vipers, Jackals, and other groups that seek to terrorize citizens and travelers, and this is only because the Courier is not as powerful with influence over entire states like the NCR or the Legion, and even General Oliver is quick to call the Courier out on this when the Courier is taking Hoover Dam.
Look, I know you're riding high right now, but let me tell you, you ain't pissing on me right now. You're pissing on the bear. You've been far enough west, I'm guessing, to know how far that claw stretches. Bankai! With the bear, and I wasn't expecting a fight when I came up here. And now that we're talking, I don't like the sound of things. Do you know what you're doing? Making a nation like you think you're doing ain't like chowing down on a pile of fancy lad snack cakes. Think you got the guts to carve out a frontier? Build towns, protect the roads, run supplies, train troops? I know what those robots of yours can do on a bad day, and I'm not eager to toss lies at them just to make a point. But if you're taking this place, you better hope you can hold it. I'll give my superiors my opinion, but I don't think they're going to listen. So if NCR comes at you, and it will, pray you're ready. I promise you, our situation's reversed, I'd see you hang.
And Oliver raises an interesting point. Sure, the Courier could take the dam now, but what if the NCR comes back with twice as many troops as they had before with twice as much firepower? Eventually, House's set batch of Securitrons that have more than likely lowered in number from the Battle of Hoover Dam as well as from general everyday concerns within the Mojave, will become engulfed by an angered republic no longer held back by fear of a Legion assault. On top of this, the Courier, at least canonically, has no prior established lore or empirical backing to suggest that they could run the city of New Vegas, let alone the entire region. The more and more cracks start to form, the less and less desirable an independent Vegas looks to me, though I still do not consider it the worst choice. To me, an independent Vegas as well as Yes Man and Courier 6 are bad for the Mojave.
Why should we support Vegas? They've locked Freeside out of the city and do nothing to help their neighboring townsfolk. I'm sure you have your reasons, but we are much too busy to waste our time on those selfish bastards.
In Rome, I found a template for a society equal to the challenges of the post-apocalyptic world. A society that could and would survive. A society that could prevent mankind from fracturing and destroying itself in this new world by establishing a new Pax Romana.
I've discussed Caesar's Legion extensively in the past, and you can see some of that in my video talking about the character of Legate Lanius here. I find them fascinating, easily one of the most interesting factions in Fallout's history, but their presence in the Mojave is questionable. After his defeat in 2277 at the hands of the New Californian Republic, Caesar has remained bitter and obstinate. The Legion now bides their time across the Colorado River, recovering their strength and gathering resources for another assault on the Hoover Dam. But they only arrived in Nevada after first conquering a sizable portion of territory east of California, and it's unknown as to why Caesar decided to start moving westward in the first place. But once they reached Nevada, the NCR brought their march westward to a grinding halt, and instead of retreating to the east, Caesar stays put in Nevada. But to what end? Obviously, they want to take the dam from the NCR, pushing the Republic out of the Strip and out of the region entirely. Then after that, they intend to keep moving westward into California. But what plans do they have for the Strip? Considering that they look down upon the decadence of the Strip, nor do they have any real knowledge on technology or Securitrons, we can only assume that they intend to enslave or kill most of those that inhabit it, utterly wasting all its benefit to the Legion. And this isn't exactly an unfair assumption to make, because the Legion is working with the Emeritus to go forward with their plans for the Strip that will kill everyone. Caesar's Legion has an enormous problem with, both figuratively and literally, burning their resources and potential resources away. The Legion sits across the river now, trying to regather their strength for a new assault, moving in their soldiers and slaves from the east. But despite having a seemingly scarce amount of troops, Caesar is still willing to kill his men for even the most minor of infractions, or even watch them die in the arena for his own entertainment. When he accepts new Praetorian guards, those invited have to fight already positioned members of the Praetorians to the death, and these are the men who stand at his side and are supposed to protect him every day. And it's not as if the Legion is gaining new soldiers every day. The Legion only allows men and conquered tribals into their ranks, and as we learn from Legate Lanius, taking territory for the Legion can be a gamble, as they might lose much of their resources without much, if anything at all, to show for it.
Long ago, when taking Denver, I had to face such a challenge. Many died over many years to claim the city as ours. It was the lines of food and water that nearly broke the Legion's strength, and the lack of tribals near that cursed city. When I felt in that struggle, I felt as I saw the map of the West. The West is a trap. The bear has already been caught in it, and it is dying.
In the in-game slides, we learn that the Legion takes no new soldiers from their conquest of the region, and instead enslaves or lords over them as they once were. Caesar even ignores and refuses to integrate the Whitelegs, a tribe desperate to be assimilated into the Legion, to the point where they are harassing neighboring tribes in hopes of assassinating Joshua Graham. He does take the great Khans in the in-game slides, but the Khans are a dying tribe and are not as strong as they once were after the massacre at Bitter Springs. So not only are they taking in and training new members at an unsustainable rate, but they are also destroying valuable resources and settlements, making Camp Searchlight uninhabitable, as well as butchering potential slaves and traders at Nelson and Nipton. They see this as a part of their atrocities and reign of terror on the NCR to break their spirit.
Whatever I require, infiltration, assassination, dramatic atrocities to break the spirit of the enemy, etc. They're mentally flexible. They operate behind enemy lines for extended periods, imitating the enemy's customs without becoming sullied. In all these things, Wolpus is a master. The profligate's morale is in the
Bankai!
They've occupied the Mojave for years, getting picked off one by one. They were told it'd be easy. They keep being told that victory is right around the corner, that Vegas will roll over, become the sixth state of their little union. It's President Kimball who's been telling them that. When he dies, the enormity of his lies will come crashing down, the punchline to a bad joke.
But as a side effect, they're also terrorizing and scaring away the people of the Mojave that will want nothing to do with the Legion. If I'm not mistaken, there is only a single character who is not affiliated with any faction, major or minor, in any way that says anything positive at all about the Legion, that being Raul.
I don't really have a problem with them. People around here tend to see them as invading marauders planning to burn and pillage the countryside. But I've been to Arizona, boss. Before the Legion, it was a nasty place. So thick with raiders you couldn't trade with a town 2 miles up the road. Caesar's laws aren't nice, and their actions aren't always pretty. But then neither am I. But you keep me around.
People being afraid of the Legion garners them no benefit. They get no traders who will want to support the Legion after slaughtering their neighboring townsfolk. There are caravanners like Dale Barton, but I'm specifically talking about caravans and traders native to the Mojave or California, as Dale Barton as well as other Legion partnered caravans are more so from the east and already conquered Legion territories. They also won't gain any soldiers who will want to live and die by the Legion and what it stands for. All they leave in their wake is destruction and a forced regression into barbaric tribal culture. They don't even have the proper technological know-how to properly use the small auto dock in Caesar's tent to save his life, yet they think they should have the dam, on top of wanting to fire a howitzer at it during the Second Battle of Hoover Dam, which will most likely damage it.
We recently obtained an artillery weapon, but we don't have the part or the skill to fix it. The best marksmen of the NCR are usually at the rear of any battle. The gun will allow us to strike at them.
And if not damage the dam, then damage the Legion's ability to properly harness its power, since the Legion will be too busy killing profligate engineers to realize that their expertise is needed to get the dam at its full potential. A potential future for the Mojave under the Legion looks dim, and it looks even dimmer once we consider the issue of future Legion leadership. Without courier intervention, Caesar's Brain Legion will kill him, and there is no way around that. Even if we assume he survives until the Second Battle of Hoover Dam, the Securitrons underneath the fort will emerge from the bunker and kill him if they're awakened. Or even without the Securitrons, I don't think it's an unfair claim to make that the NCR would likely storm the fort after their potential victory. Or even if you don't want to accept or believe in either of these outcomes, Caesar still eventually just dies from his health complications or just good old-fashioned old age. And once Caesar dies from any number of scenarios or possibilities, if he himself isn't killed in some fight, Legate Lanius then takes his place at the head of the Legion, and this blatantly marks their end. Regardless of how you feel about Caesar or the Legion, they've been so successful and made the empire they have out of the East because of Caesar himself. Caesar is a well-read, by Wasteland standards, charismatic and strong leader, but the same cannot be said for Legate Lanius. Lanius is a violent and sadistic man, as members of the Legion themselves are quick to claim.
Lanius is savage. Savagely loyal too, but only to me. He has no love for my Legion. But this has its uses. He has no attachment to his men, no compunction about battlefield losses. All he cares about is destroying the enemy.
Lanius is not charismatic or clever. He's simply the best fighter in the Legion. The Legion has not flourished based on how well they fight. They flourished because of Caesar's leadership and his strong influence. With Lanius at the head of the Legion, all of the leadership skills and charisma that brought the Legion where it is today to even contend with an army like the NCR in the first place will disappear. And it's frightening to think of where the Legion will progress from that point onward.
This is a moment I'd hoped would not come for many years. Caesar's death puts the Legate Lanius in command now. Wale.
I've heard some bad stories about this Legate. I'm not sure I'll be welcome around here once he takes charge.
Even more frightening is to think of their plans after they potentially win the Second Battle of Hoover Dam. While they plan to cross the Colorado River and fully move into the Mojave, they also seem to have desire to eventually push their way into California.
Just as with the ancient republic, it is natural that a military force should conquer and transform the NCR into a military dictatorship. Thesis and antithesis. The Colorado River is my Rubicon. The NCR Council will be eradicated. But the new synthesis will change the Legion as well. from a basically nomadic army to a standing military force that protects its citizens and the power of its dictator.
With their commander dead, the NCR will pull out of this region, allowing our conquest to continue westward unopposed for a time. The Legion will swell with the number of slaves we will claim from this place, and the tribute we gather will fund further campaigns. Perhaps in time I will be granted the honor of conquering the land known as California. But for now we rest.
The NCR undoubtedly have a presence in Nevada and in the Mojave, but California is their home, and if the Legion is already struggling the way they are with the overextended and limited NCR presence that's been allowed in Nevada, then going into California, Lanius, or Caesar will get them completely and utterly annihilated. And even if they win with high difficulty and a substantial amount of casualties and losses, there's nothing for them on the other side of California. All there is for them to do is stay even further extended to the borders of the sea. Caesar likes to criticize the NCR and the Brotherhood, claiming that their societies have no plans for developing.
No, I'll destroy it because it's inevitable that it be destroyed. It's Hegelian dialectics, not personal animosity. The NCR is a loose conglomerate of individuals looking out for themselves. It's lost virtue. No one cares about the collective, the greater good. It's not built to last. I'm just hastening the inevitable. The Brotherhood seems to have formed not long after the Great Atomic War. It's hard to know. They care little for history. They like to pretty up their mission with trappings of chivalry, but the truth is they're hoarders. They hoard technology. It's been 200 years, and they still have the mentality of scavengers. They say they're preserving these technologies, but for what? They have no vision. They offer no future. They're a dead end.
The Legion has no doctors. The Legion has no agriculture. The Legion is living for as long as one old and sick man himself lives. Once Caesar is gone, the Legion will collapse, and even if they take the dam and successfully make their way to California, regardless of their leader, they will get enveloped and swallowed whole by the new California Republic in its home territory. Or even if they somehow manage to run their way through California after taking significant losses, there is nothing for them but more territory. More territory that they're stretched across without the manpower to keep order and hold their grip on these states and their territories because they keep bringing in troops to the west to die. The Legion is regressive. The Legion has an inexplicable pride for behaving as if the apocalypse took place before Christ, and holding themselves back from the useful technology and medicine they need to thrive. The Legion's atrocious behavior and propensity for genocide, as well as burning through all their resources or resources they could potentially acquire, whether they be soldiers or towns with potential traders and doctors, will always keep them 7 steps behind the NCR. The Legion has no real plans for the Hoover Dam or the New Vegas Strip after kicking the NCR out of the area, aside from moving on to California, which will be disastrous, and the only reason they're doing any of this in the first place is because of Caesar and his ego. Caesar applies Hegelian dialectics to the way he runs his armies, and his reasoning for this war with the NCR.
It's Hegelian dialectics, not personal animosity. How do I put this basically enough? It's a philosophical theory, the kind you might encounter if you took time to read some books. The fundamental premise is to envision history as a sequence of dialectical conflicts. Each dialectic begins with a proposition, a thesis, which inherently contains or creates its opposite, an antithesis. Thesis and antithesis. The conflict is inevitable, but the resolution of the conflict yields something new, a synthesis, eliminating the flaws in each, leaving behind common elements and ideas.
The problem with this is that he doesn't even follow it the way he describes it. There was no synthesis after the first battle at Hoover Dam, where the Legion was crushed by the NCR. The Legion could have used this opportunity to reinvent themselves and change their tactics, as well as their society to adapt to the challenge of the NCR, but instead they remained the same. The Legion has no future. Though some of the Legion's conquest has led to civilizing hostile tribes and putting towns in better shape than when they found them.
Walked the east too, before the bull came. Then, much like the Mojave before the bear, tribes, towns, clutching to life. Bull did a better job.
What they are doing in the Mojave and their plans for the West in general will lead them to destruction. They have nothing to gain from invading the West, but they have everything to lose. Their occupation of the Mojave has nothing to do with aiding the people of the Mojave or aiding mankind as a whole, but has everything to do with Caesar's ego and wanting to test his army against the civilization he once called home. Caesar's legion is bad for the Mojave.
I have walked at Caesar's command across the east into the west, far enough to know Caesar's word did not drive me, far enough to see the end. There's no future in the bear or bull. The bear is diseased, barely clings to life, and the bull, when the legion reaches the sea, it will turn on itself and die.
NCR's my country, and I support it. Anyone who says otherwise, I'll feed them my knee. NCR just has some shaping up to do. Maybe Caesar kicking them in the nuts is a nice wake-up call, is all I'm saying.
There's a lot to say about the NCR, or New California Republic, but they are most notable for trying to replicate the old American government. They were once a small farming town known as Shady Sands during the events of Fallout 1 in 2161, but after some assistance from the Vault Dweller in their time of need, Shady Sands eventually blossomed into a thriving community. And not long after, there was no semblance of the small town that was once Shady Sands, and the New California Republic was now fully realized with an intimidating amount of territory under their banner, as they built up a strong civilization in the American Southwest.
I don't have time to discuss all the different aspects of the NCR with you, but if you want it all in a nutshell, the NCR is progress. If you wander around the wasteland, you'll find all sorts of tribes, villages, and such where people spend most of their time trying to survive. The NCR gives its citizens a shot at something more. We have laws, currency, healthcare, government, all the things that were lost. It's not perfect, but it's worth protecting, which is why we also have the largest military in existence.
Although the New California Republic might seem like the obvious best option for a future civilization, this only really applies to territories and cities that have completely fallen under the banner of the NCR. Once the NCR grew past what their borders and existing assets could sustain, they went out east looking for new resources and territory, and eventually stumbled upon New Vegas and the Hoover Dam. Thinking that they could restore Hoover Dam to better condition than when they found it, the NCR set up post at Hoover Dam, but it wasn't long before the Legion came from the other side of the river looking for a fight. The NCR barely managed to push them back across the eastern side of the Colorado River, but did not follow them across it to stomp them out completely due to lack of manpower and resources, leading to the situation they find themselves in today with the Legion constantly at their throats, doing things on a small scale and behind the scenes to hurt NCR morale and their willingness to fight. On top of this, their fear of Caesar is what made them vulnerable to being nickel and dimed by Mr. House.
Years ago, when I detected NCR scouts roaming the Mojave, I could tell from their uniforms that these were no mere tribesmen. I knew it was only a matter of time before an army appeared to take control of the dam, and I knew my Securitrons wouldn't be enough to oppose them. And so I recruited the 3 families. Vegas belongs to me because I mustered enough strength to bring the NCR to the bargaining table. Would Kimball and Oliver have traded the lives of hundreds of soldiers for absolute control of Hoover Dam? Oh, yes. They weren't afraid of me. They were afraid of Caesar, that attacking me would leave them vulnerable to a Legion offensive. And so they negotiated. Not out of the kindness of their hearts, as they try to make it seem, because the calculus of power left no other choice.
And House is correct. The NCR has no choice in their position but to negotiate. It is undeniable that the NCR is a powerful army, but their occupation of the Mojave Wasteland is certainly not reflective of that. They've had control over much of the West Coast for many years now, but are only just now attempting to make their way east, and only with as many troops and assets as NCR politicians back in California would allow. And what they've been allotted is not enough for what they're trying to do in Nevada. The NCR and the Mojave are overextended and stretched too thin across too much territory, to the point where the archaic Caesar's Legion and the massively nerfed Mr. House are legitimate threats to them and their economy. And so, as a result of the NCR's misguided and greedy overextension into the Mojave, everyday Mojave and NCR citizens are forced to suffer the consequences. For example, NCR citizens and soldiers pour their way into Freeside, attacking its inhabitants and using up Freeside's already scarce resources.
People in Freeside generally fall into one of 2 categories. Those who've been here all their lives call themselves locals. When people from the NCR and other places started pouring in, the locals began referring to them as squatters, and the name stuck. The locals blame the squatters for the scarcity of resources in Freeside, and the squatters blame any act of violence against them on the locals. They're both right to some extent, and violent outbreaks between the two are all too common these days.
And make no mistake, the NCR only entered and stay in the Mojave currently because of their own greed. A common point that I see thrown around in relation to the NCR is that they're the most morally righteous faction because of their occasional charities like the Bitter Springs refugee camp. But this is disingenuous, as the Bitter Springs massacre was caused by the NCR themselves.
Don't you dare mention the NCR under this roof. They are butchers without honor, killers of women and children. When the NCR came to the Mojave, we thought they would be easy pickings. We raided their caravans, their towns, their camps. They couldn't stop us. At least that's what we thought. They tracked us to Bitter Springs and surrounded us. When our children, our sick and old, fled through a nearby pass, the NCR gunned them down. Oh, they claimed it was a miscommunication, but tell that to those who saw our families butchered. Tell it to the survivors who were banished here.
Nor is the Bitter Springs refugee camp effective in any capacity, as NCR soldiers, as well as the refugees they're supposed to be protecting, get picked off from afar by a great Khan hiding in the shadows.
Refugee camp? Is that what they're calling it? Good old NCR. They can whitewash anything. Let me tell you something. That refugee camp, it's built on the blood and tears of my people. Nobody likes to talk about it, but I remember.
The troops stationed at this camp know this is happening, but they lack the resources and the manpower to deal with it, while innocent, sick, non-combatant refugees get picked off one by one. Now, is the Bitter Springs massacre entirely the NCR's fault? No. The Great Khans played their own substantial part in the events leading up to it, but my point is that the NCR is stretched so thin they can't even take care of a single raider that they know is basically in their backyard. But even removing the potential threat of combat and death out of the scenario entirely, the NCR can't stop people from stealing their water.
Bad soil and rationed water. It's to be expected around here. But the rationing's off. Worst part is NCR won't admit it. Pretty hard to meet their crop quotas with 20% less water than we're supposed to be getting. Not that OSI cares about any of this.
Their issue with maintaining a steady supply of resources that keep the troops healthy and ready to fight is apparent when visiting both the cook at Camp McCarran as well as just by casually strolling through Camp Forlorn Hope. Camp Forlorn Hope is easily the greatest example of the NCR's failure to properly take care of their troops, as good NCR soldiers get sent there to die with each passing day, and the idea of getting shipped off to Forlorn Hope is even used to scare troops and keep them in line. The only way Forlorn Hope or any of these other issues can see any resolution is through the courier, especially the water rations issue, as if not for the courier, the farmers that grow the crops for the troops to eat decide to leave the Mojave entirely on top of quitting their jobs.
You showed up just in time to say goodbye. Me and a couple of the others are packing it in and heading back to California. The water ration's still a problem, and the NCR doesn't look like it's going to do anything about it anytime soon.
Well, if the water ration is lower, can't you just grow fewer crops to meet the ratio of the water rations?
I wouldn't be able to meet the quota, and the NCR would kick me out of my job anyway. Nah, it's better I get out on my own terms.
And this is the case for most of the NCR's dealings throughout the region. Without courier intervention, they are nothing more than a dying faction holding on to what little authority they have in the Mojave. Authority not gained from respect and diplomatically gaining the trust of those whose lands they wish to inhabit or annex, but rather using their manpower and their might to take what they want when they want it. People both in-game and within the Fallout fanbase try to dress the NCR up as this noble and morally righteous faction, but I suspect that this is only because of how closely the NCR attempts to replicate modern democratic governments, as well as their occasional pointless charities. But in reality, the NCR only occupies the Mojave because of their own greed, as stated in even the in-game intro slides.
As the Republic grew, so did its needs. Scouts spread east, seeking territory and wealth in the dry and merciless expanse of the Mojave Desert. They returned with tales of a city untouched by the warheads that had scorched the rest of the world, and a great wall spanning the Colorado River. The NCR mobilized its army and sent it east to occupy Hoover Dam and restore it to working condition.
NCR, did you just crawl out from under a rock? Those folks only care about their business, their people, and their pockets. NCR's order? Don't make me laugh, stranger. We work this land, we own these streets, and we yank up the bad weeds ourselves. Got it?
The NCR is not a benevolent faction like the followers of the Apocalypse, come to save the poor innocent people of Nevada from the looming threat of Caesar's Legion. But what they are is an intrusive, invading army hiding behind that facade and a mask of philanthropic charity to do genuinely evil and corrupt things, like manipulate hard-working everyday people into being annexed, forcibly integrating them into the Republic and forcing them to pay the Republic's heavy taxes, lest they be imprisoned, or worse, as it is no secret that despite their claims of diplomacy and democracy, the NCR, or at least some of its highest-ranking officers, are not above acts of immorality, namely, genocide. Colonel Moore is quick to have the courier just wipe out the Khans, the Brotherhood of Steel, the Kings. With the Kings, she does advise you to not go looking for a fight automatically, but there wouldn't be a need to go into Freeside with a squad of armed troops hoping you don't have to wipe the Kings off the face of the earth in the first place if the NCR didn't wrongly push their way into Freeside where they are clearly not wanted, to host charities for their citizens and use up Freeside's already scarce resources. One may make the argument that the NCR would better tend to Freeside's needs, like its violence or water shortage, but that is a decision for the leaders and people of Freeside themselves to make, and it is certainly not the NCR's place to try to move in and take over land already being used, nor is it their place to commit genocide against the Kings if they refuse. Colonel Moore also openly makes a mockery of people like Ambassador Crocker, and the idea of attempting to solve things through peaceful diplomacy, rather than just rolling up and shooting everyone.
An alliance? That's an interesting proposition. Any plan where I can throw packs of raiders at the enemy instead of my own soldiers is a good one. We don't have time for diplomacy. This battle is coming any time now. If the leader won't be budged, he'll have to be replaced. I want you to go back to Red Rock Canyon and assassinate this Papa Khan. You'll have to be stealthy. If they see you do it, they'll kill you.
And about the Brotherhood, is there no peaceful way to resolve the situation?
Don't even think about it. Any Brotherhood survivors likely harbor a deep grudge against us. We can't afford to leave such an enemy alive. Any other objections? Maybe you'd like to bring the Brotherhood some flowers.
I'm not sure how I managed it, but I talked the Brotherhood into supporting the NCR.
And you believed them? Do you have any idea how long we've been fighting those bastards? Ugh, Crocker will have a field day with this. He'll want to establish diplomatic relations with them for Pete's sake.
Even within the script of the game, the voiceover directions specifically cite that Colonel Moore is not pleased with a peaceful solution with the Brotherhood of Steel. The New California Republic attempts to masquerade as a benevolent group of heroes come to save the day and save the people from the thieving rapists of Caesar's Legion. But behind this facade, they are corrupt, incompetent, genocidal, avaricious, imperialist, and openly sinister. The only good things I can think to say about the Republic is that they elect their leaders and are more equipped to adapt their government to whatever new developments may occur, unlike the Legion, who are doomed to crumble once Caesar inevitably dies. But a sentiment that many faces throughout the game, and I myself share, is that the only good thing about the NCR is that they are not the Legion.
Ain't we covered this? The only thing not bad about them is they ain't Legion. The NCR is the biggest gang of thieves in the Mojave. Only difference is they pass laws to make their crimes legal before they commit them.
We're safer here than in North Vegas or West Side, though we've got to put up with the NCR. Don't get me started, stranger. We don't take kindly to either of them. We fought hard for our home, and we're here to stay. The Legion knows nothing of working the land. Those folks would rather pillage, burn, and steal like mad beasts. That ain't honest living. The NCR's no better. They won't burn your home and rape your daughter, sure, but they'll steal your wealth all the same, when you ain't looking.
The New California Republic is stretched so thin because of their own greed, so much so that they don't have the manpower to retrieve the body of a single soldier being guarded by drugged-up raiders. The same drugged-up raiders that got soloed by a single Great Khan armed with nothing more than a combat knife. They don't have the manpower or resources to keep roads safe, and maneuverable for the very NCR traders and merchants that fuel their army and keep them ready to fight. The New California Republic only came to Nevada in the first place because of their greedy imperialism and their never-ending desire to expand. And in the process of expanding, they murder innocent people and rain unprecedented amount of taxes down on whomever they annex, only to fail in protecting and assisting them as their government when push comes to shove.
Despite NCR's pledge to support Prim, they abandoned the town after their loss to the Courier. Independent again, Prim operates much as it had before the powder gangs arrived, full of ups and downs.
The New California Republic has not only let their facade of a thriving civilized nation slip when they entered the Mojave, but they have also failed their citizens and the very people whose children and loved ones they are sending into Nevada deserts to die for a lost cause. The NCR is constantly dumping unprecedented amounts of money into the Strip and the monorail to the Strip, and it doesn't help them or their citizens, but it does help House, who is actively conspiring against them. Despite my early opinions when first looking at this topic, as well as what I thought I would be writing when I first started on this script, the New California Republic is terrible for the Mojave.
The NCR is a loose conglomerate of individuals looking out for themselves. It's lost virtue. No one cares about the collective, the greater good. Ever since losing its queen, the NCR has been weaker, more diffuse. Democracy has been its weakness, not its strength. Greed runs rampant. The government is corrupt, accepting bribes from Brahmin barons and landowners to the detriment of citizens. The profligates' morale is in the shit.
Bankai.
They've occupied the Mojave for years, getting picked off one by one. They were told it'd be easy. They keep being told that victory is right around the corner, that Vegas will roll over, become the sixth state of their little union. It's President Kimball who's been telling them that. When he dies, the enormity of his lies will come crashing down, the punchline to a bad joke.
Oh, come now, don't play the fool. Vegas has fools enough, a superfluity of them. They're what makes it so profitable. They come to Vegas chasing penny-ante dreams of high living, to feel like they're big shots, like they're winners. You see that you and I are of a different stripe, don't you? We don't have to dream that we're important. We are.
To be completely honest, I didn't think much of Mr. House when first considering this topic for a video, or in general really when I think about this subject to myself. But after further consideration and looking at this from all angles, I think House is more than likely the most sound choice. People like to discredit House because he is one man with power, a dictator like Caesar and an autocrat from the failed autocracies of the past. This is simply not true. While House does refer to himself as an autocrat, there is nothing to suggest he has ill intentions or will eventually turn into a malevolent entity within the game. The only questionable thing that House has ever done, in my opinion, is come rolling into Freeside with his Securitrons unprompted and murder the kings if the courier does not intervene and complete their quests.
Flush with his victory, Mr. House sent Securitrons into Freeside, thinking to increase his control over the area. When fighting broke out, the kings fought valiantly, but were no match for the armored killing machines, and were wiped out to the last man.
But there is no other ending or any other occurrence like this in the entire game, unlike the Legion or the New California Republic, who consistently demonstrate a penchant for genocide. House himself also goes out of his way to address allegations of despotism and ruthless tyranny.
I prefer the term autocrat. I would rule as a chief executive. I would not answer to a board of directors or any other entity. Nothing to impede progress. I have no interest in abusing others, just as I have no interest in legislating or otherwise dictating what people do in their private time. Nor have I any interest in being worshipped as some kind of machine god messiah. I am impervious to such corrupting ambitions. But autocracy? Firm control in the hands of a technological and economic visionary? Yes, that Vegas shall have. If you want to see the fate of democracies, look out the windows.
House very clearly has mankind's best interest in his heart. I've seen criticism levied his way that he only cares about New Vegas, but this is also blatantly untrue. The reason that House is focused on Vegas, his hold over it, and defending it so intensely at the time of the events of the main quest is because there's a battle coming where two imposing armies that outnumber or outgun him are waiting not far from his home and business to steal it from him. House is rightful to so adamantly want to defend his territory and his living, but whenever his vision for what comes after the Second Battle of Hoover Dam is discussed, his thoughts are of man and furthering humanity beyond the ruins of what the wasteland has to offer them.
New Vegas is more than a city. It's the remedy to mankind's derailment. The city's economy is a blast furnace in which can be forged the steel of a new rail line running straight to a new horizon. What is the NCR? A society of people desperate to experience comfort, ease, luxury. A society of customers. That's how I harness the NCR to my endeavor. Their occupation has been the engine of my growing economy. With all that money pouring in, give me 20 years and I'll reignite the high technology development sectors. 50 years and I'll have people in orbit. 100 years and my colony ships will be heading for the stars to search for planets unpolluted by the wrath and folly of a bygone generation.
Even in his last moments, or when his plans can no longer be achieved, he still clings to and thinks only of the future of humanity, and therefore not making up a character or a lie.
Fool! To let personalities derail future of mankind. Stupid! Slavery! The future of mankind? What have you done?
Do you have the slightest idea of what you've done? Of what you've destroyed? You've doomed Vegas to be ruled by corrupt bureaucrats or fanatical savages. Single-handedly, you brought mankind's best hopes of forward progress crashing down. No punishment would be too severe.
To claim the House does not care about humanity or making the Mojave wasteland as well as its surrounding areas and potentially even beyond that better for mankind as a whole is disingenuous and dishonest, and I do believe it is grasping at straws looking for any reason to critique or discredit House. Robert House is not without his flaws, however, as is no faction within this game and throughout the Fallout mythos. House is often smart and calculated, but there are a few times where he makes incredibly short-sighted decisions or take hefty risks. One such poor decision, for example, is attempting to rehabilitate the Omertas. While it is true that all of the tribal families were somewhat violent savages, the soon-to-be Omertas, or the Slitherkin, were particularly known throughout the Waste for their psychopathic and sociopathic behavior, as even House himself cites.
Yes, though at the time they called themselves the Slitherkin. A vicious clan, not that that's changed exactly. They were nomads, capable fighters, but their specialty was betrayal. They'd invite travelers into their yurts, drug them, murder, or enslave them. They took pride in their craft. I don't think Omertas saw other people as people at all. Everyone else was just prey. They reminded me of a certain criminal element Vegas used to attract. I told them some stories, gave them some clothes, and they ran with it.
Though House did indeed need bodies to tend and man his casinos, the Slitherkin, who are known for betrayal as well as a myriad of other generally unsavory things, were more than likely not the best fit, eventually forcing the courier to deal with them as they have plans to betray House on top of murdering innocent civilians and patrons on the Strip. They intend to let chlorine gas out on the Strip during the Second Battle of Hoover Dam, and a plan that they have to conspire against House as well as the NCR with Caesar's Legion, as they once betrayed and murdered innocent travelers seeking refuge or resources in the Mojave Desert, and attempting to model them after crime families and the Italian mafia certainly didn't help incentivize them to turn from their old ways. In fact, it only further encouraged them to remain both cutthroat and ruthless. House does seem to have matured since his reclaiming of Vegas, however, as now he wants to take as little a chance as possible, to the point where he wants to completely annihilate the Brotherhood of Steel.
We're talking about a coterie of bulging-eyed fanatics who think all pre-war technology belongs to them. They'll never accept my using an army of robots to defend New Vegas. While it's a fight I can win, I'd rather sidestep it altogether. The world has no use for emotionally unstable techno-fetishists. Just wipe them out, will you?
The Brotherhood of Steel, as Mr. House outlined, are a legitimate threat to he and the civilization he wants to make for the betterment of mankind. And while this decision to wipe the Brotherhood out may be seen as extreme or cruel, the Brotherhood launching an assault on the Strip or House would reap far worse consequences for the long-term health of the Strip and the Mojave. And if they must be wiped out in order for the greater good and for others to live, it is a sacrifice that must be made. While ends justify the means arguments are often very dangerous and lead to good people becoming sinister shells of their former selves, the Wasteland is a very different place than the old world with laws and governments that would prevent the Brotherhood from encroaching on House and his private dealings on the Strip. House knows this, and it's why he's willing to do what he has to for the betterment of mankind. He isn't trying to hold on to an idealized version of the old world that could never happen again like the NCR, nor is he trying to be a regressive barbarian who doesn't know the first thing about useful modern technology and medicine like Caesar.
To your untrained eyes, it may look as though mankind is making a comeback. In the NCR, you have something that resembles a nation-state. Savage as it is, in Caesar's Legion, you have an organized society. But neither of these offer a future. They're regurgitations of the past. Bring me the platinum chip, and in 10 years, you'll hardly recognize this city.
But to re-emphasize the point I made, House only does what is necessary. Other than the ending I referred to earlier, he does not go into areas beyond his jurisdiction looking to wipe people out or steal their land from them. The only thing House mentions or cares about is aiding humanity in bringing Nevada out of the sorry struggling state it's in currently, torn apart by war and poverty, and it makes sense that this would be his goal, and to be what he wants for the Mojave, as he lived and grew up before the Great War and knows what civilization can fully be at its peak, and dreams of restoring that peak of stability for everyone. Robert Edwin House very clearly demonstrates that he only has the best interests of everyday Mojave citizens and mankind as a whole in his mind. He does not have a consistent history of committing acts of evil, and even gets angry with the Courier if they decide to go into Gomorrah and start shooting at the Omertas as well as their casino patrons rather than investigating the Omertas as he originally intended for them to do.
I'd hoped to have you investigate the Omertas, but after the trouble you caused at Gomorrah, they won't let you in the front door. I'll see if I can make some progress with informants. You're useless in this matter.
But the Omertas had it coming.
An opinion you expressed with supreme subtlety and finesse. Moving on.
I do think there are things about House that could change and only make things better. For example, I think he'd be better off with at least a small team of advisors as opposed to just he and the Courier. House should also start trying to find or train a successor, as there's no possible telling what the future could hold, and Vegas shouldn't falter just because House dies. However, despite these minor flaws, I do genuinely and wholeheartedly believe that as the story is presented to us, Robert Edwin House is the most sound choice for long-term stability as well as necessary growth in the Mojave.
Back to Vegas, shall we? I really should do something about that monorail with all the new resources at hand. I can make sure it not only runs, but runs on time. Always bothered me, the imprecision. In any case, Vegas might see a dip in revenue for a year or two, but eventually the tourists will come flooding back, and their money with them. Vegas will be a shining jewel in the middle of the desert, an oasis of light, a beacon to show mankind the way to the stars. This is just the start, you see. This is where it all begins.
Fallout is an amazing series of games, and Fallout New Vegas' main quest is some of the best it has to offer. Within Fallout, there are real people with real struggles and conflicts, and its writing consistently amazes me. In Fallout New Vegas, we have these factions, each with their pros and cons, each compelling enough to warrant an over decade-long debate, and each with fascinating origins and culture outside of anything related to the main quest or the battle for Hoover Dam. Though Bethesda has strayed from the gripping style of writing of New Vegas and the original games, I hope that we can eventually get another main quest as impactful or as good at inciting debate and discourse as the main quest of Fallout New Vegas, though all of it may not be entirely healthy. As I've outlined throughout this video, the potential future of an independent Vegas looks grim and uncertain. Meanwhile, the Legion is destroying itself slowly while being blatantly evil and regressive, and although their savagery and ruthlessness has led to the pacifying of hostile tribes throughout the East, or raiders who terrorize innocent people, the wall of the NCR blocking their way into the West only has them losing valuable troops and threatening their grip on their eastern territories. On the other hand, the New California Republic is the closest thing to normal when compared to our modern-day governments, but they openly and shamelessly commit acts of evil as an invading army driven by greed and imperialism. House, though he has some flaws, has the Mojave's future as well as the safety and longevity of its citizens in his heart, on top of having the intellect and the manpower to put his plans into motion, as he demonstrated by protecting Vegas from the Great War in the first place. While war is nothing new to fictional storytelling, Fallout New Vegas explores war in a way that few other games or pieces of fiction in general care to do at all. It also finally makes the tagline, "War never changes," make sense. It finally makes sense now. And I'm hoping Fallout will soon return to the gripping writing that made it compelling compared to its role-playing contemporaries all the way back in 1997. In the meantime, I make videos on a variety of games, comics, and manga, exploring many subjects. If you found this video entertaining or informative, feel free to leave a like to support the channel, as well as tell me what you'd like to see more of in the future. You may also enjoy other videos on my channel, or it may even be worth your while to subscribe to be notified of future videos like this. If you are interested in more Fallout content, be sure to check out my Halloween video on the glow from Fallout 1, or my video on Legate Lanius that I mentioned in the Legion section once again. Both will be annotated on the screen as well as in the description below. Have a blessed day. Last year, I took an unannounced hiatus that lasted for 4 months between May and September of 2022. And while I'm not proud of it, nor was it intentional, I still wish to refrain from doing such in the future, and I'm aware there's been a bit of a gap in videos between the last and these ones. Life does get busy, and sometimes it is just a little difficult to find worthwhile topics to write about for videos, but in the future I will attempt to be more apparent with updates, as in when a video is taking a while or when I might need to take a break or something else of the sort. I hope shorts have been a worthwhile substitute in the wait for this and the Urashiki video, and I thank each and every one of you for watching, waiting for, and supporting my content.